Again with the developing story of an officer shot outside the law enforcement center in Greenville. Greenville police say the man who shot the officer then took his own life.
News 13's Victoria Dunkel is live in Greenville. And Vic, what's the latest on the officer's condition?
Well, right now we know the officer was taken to the hospital here and is in surgery at this time. The officer, the interim police chief says that they do expect him to make a recovery, but they're asking for prayers for him right now. Out here at the scene, you can see they're finishing up. We've got several crews here doing some investigation, collecting of evidence and so on. SLED is now involved because this was an officer-involved shooting. And let me tell you what sort of played out that led to this situation, and now has an officer in the hospital in surgery. The police say the man had been trying to get into the law enforcement center here on McGee Street in Greenville around 10:20 last night when the doors were locked. And the police say that he then opened fire and shot through the glass doors there. And that is what led the officers inside the building to call for backup. The interim chief said the officer got the call for that backup and arrived within just minutes.
The first officer that arrives pulls up to him, gets out, engages him, instructing him to put his weapon down, and he's firing at the officer. The officer fired one round back, and of course the officer was hit during that, and then it looks like the suspect suffered a self-inflicted gunshot.
Now, here is the other aspect of this story. Police believe that the man who came here and fired the shots at the officer and then took his own life was connected to an earlier call that they had received. In fact, Greenville police officers were at the scene of a home on Augusta Court. They got a call there around 9:30 last night regarding a domestic situation. They were already there investigating what is now a murder investigation because one man was already dead there. They believe that the same man who shot the police officer then took his own life may be involved in that shooting. That case, of course, is in the investigation process as well. We will be here live this morning getting new information as we receive it. We'll pass it along to you. Reporting live in Greenville, Victoria Dunkel, News 13.
Police officer again shot in Greenville.
News 13's Victoria Dunkel is live at the Law Enforcement Center. And Vic, we have some new information, don't we?
Absolutely. A few minutes ago when we were here live in our last half hour, you could see that the investigators were still here just within the last 3 to 5 minutes. We saw the final group of the investigators collecting evidence at the scene pull away from this area. Now, that does not mean the investigation is anywhere near being done. What we do know is that an officer was shot in response to a call from the law enforcement center itself. The officers inside the building, inside the front doors, called for backup after a man came up and approached them trying to get inside. This was around 10:20 last night. They say that, here's some more video from the scene while I tell you exactly what walked through the situation there. They say around 10:20 the man walked up to the door, tried to get in. When he could not because of protocol, it was locked at that time. He fired a shotgun, shattering the glass. The officers inside called for backup. A responding officer got to the scene, and the interim police chief said that man refused to put down his gun when that officer told him to do so, and then fired the shotgun at the officer.
The officer sustained 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to the lower right side, 1 in the forearm hand area. And we're encouraging everybody, you know, that's one of our family members, so we're encouraging everybody to keep him in your prayers.
Now, back out here live, we do know that the officer went into surgery, and we're waiting to get word regarding his condition. The interim police chief did say that they did not believe this to be a life-threatening situation, although he couldn't say for sure. They do expect him to make a full recovery, as he said, but they definitely are asking for the prayers. Now, the interesting aspect of this is police say this all started with a domestic call, they believe, that came in about an hour before this shooting happened. That was a murder or investigation now on Augusta Court. What they say is it was a domestic call. The officers responded. They found a man dead there as well. They believe the man who came to the police center here was involved in that shooting as well. Again, this is the early part of this investigation. They're trying to piece all of this puzzle together, and of course, we'll be following the investigation for you. We're going to bring you more updates as we get them throughout the morning. Reporting live in Greenville, Victoria Dunkel, News 13.
All right, Ingrid, thanks so much. And now let's go back out to our live coverage of that developing story involving the shooting of a police officer.
And News 13's Victoria Dunkel is outside the law enforcement center in Greenville. And Vic, that's where the shooting happened just a few hours ago.
Exactly. Throughout the morning, we've been moving closer as the investigation has allowed us to get to this point. Now you can see we're right outside the front doors of the law enforcement center, and this is where the trouble started around 10:20 last night. If you can look, you can see where the shotgun blew out the glass here. Now, police tell us a man came up, tried to get in. Now, after hours, those doors are locked. When that door was locked, he decided he was going to fire the shotgun through it, and you can see the shattered glass. That's when the officers on the other side of the doors called for backup, and another officer in the downtown area responded very quickly. Let's look at some more video we have from last night. Now, what we found when we arrived here with our crews earlier is the entire parking lot area had been taped off because that's where the confrontation really heated up. The officer arrived, told the man to put down his gun. He refused, and that is when the man fired a shot at the officer, and we are told then the man turned the gun on himself.
Unusual occurrence that somebody would come up to the front of the law enforcement center and start firing inside, but of course the appropriate security measures was implemented because the front door was locked.
Now, what is interesting is now police are trying to determine if there is a connection between what played out here out in front of the law enforcement center and what happened at this site on Augusta Court. They said they received a call regarding a domestic situation going on there around 9:30 last night, and police were responding to that and discovered a man had died there as well. That is now a murder investigation, and police are trying to determine if the man involved in the shooting outside the police law enforcement center was in fact tied to that as well. A little bit more about the police officers who are out here live. We have been told that he has been with the force for about 5 years. He is in surgery. They rushed him to surgery immediately. Want to make very clear what we have been told is he was hit 3 times. Again, the man who was accused of shooting him was carrying a shotgun. It is not clear that he fired 3 shots at the officer, but that the officer was definitely hit 3 times. We're waiting to hear if he is out of surgery yet. As soon as we get that information, we'll pass it along to you. Reporting live in Greenville, Victoria Dunkel, News 13.
Good morning to you. It is Tuesday, September 2nd. I'm Holly Hedrick.
And I'm Jay Siltzer. Glad you're with us at 6:30. We begin with the latest on the officer shot outside the Greenville Law Enforcement Center.
News 13's Victoria Dunkel joins us live again from the scene. And Vic, the officer was in surgery overnight.
Yes, he was, and at this point we're not sure if he's out of the surgery yet, but we are working to get an update on his condition. Where I am right now is right outside where this really kind of all started. This is the law enforcement center here in Greenville. You can see behind me the glass door that the man who confronted the officer is accused of shooting out with a shotgun. He came here, tried to get in, the door was locked, fired the shot through the glass door there. That's when the officers on the inside called for backup, and that's when the officer who was involved in the shooting showed up out here in the parking lot, and the confrontation began. He confronted the armed man and told him to put down the gun. The man, police say, refused, and that is when the shots were fired. Now, the police chief, interim police chief, said that the officer did fire 1 round at the man who shot him.
The officer sustained 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to the lower right side, 1 in the forearm hand area, and we're encouraging everybody, you know, that's one of our family members, so we're encouraging everybody to keep him in your prayers.
Now, we can tell you that the officer involved had been with the police department here for about 5 years, and as you heard the interim police chief, they are optimistic and hopeful for his recovery, waiting to find out exactly what is the outcome of the surgery that's going on. But what is an interesting twist to this whole story is there is now a belief by the investigators that the man involved in the shooting, who eventually turned the gun on himself and took his own life here in the parking lot, was also involved in a shooting at a home on Augusta Court earlier. That is where they got the call around 9:30 last night regarding a domestic violence case. When police arrived, they found another man there dead. And then about an hour after that call came in, everything played out here outside the law enforcement center here in Greenville. Of course, this is a developing story. We will be following the information, bring you all the updates you need throughout the morning. Reporting live in Greenville, Victoria Dunkel, News 13.
The shooting of a Greenville police officer is our top story this morning.
Now let's go back out live to News 13's Victoria Dunkel. And Victoria, the man police say shot the officer is dead.
That's exactly right. Here's what we are being told at this point. The man who fired the shots at the officer that sent that officer to the hospital requiring surgery turned the gun on himself. This is where it all started, though. The police say that the man came to the doors outside the law enforcement center here, and you can see when he got to that second set of doors and they were locked, and the officers behind them would not unlock them and let him in, he pulled a shotgun and shot the glass, shattering it. Then after that, the police officers inside called for backup. That's when the officer arrived and met the man here in the parking lot. And the man exchanged gunfire with the police officer. The interim chief said their officers fired one shot at the man. Now, the man had a shotgun, and he hit the officer in 3 different locations. The officer's been in surgery most of the night and into the morning. We're working to get information on his condition right now. The interesting aspect of all of this is now police are saying that the man they say shot the police officer before he took his own life had been at a different location over on Augusta Court, and they believe he may have been tied to a deadly domestic violence case there. All of this is coming together in bits and pieces this morning as SLED and other investigators are working this case. We'll be following it and bring you updates as we get them here on News 13. Reporting live in Greenville, Victoria Dunkel, News 13.